first Q1 of 2019, we have 3 core competencies that we're pushing, right? And number 1 core competency is I want our agents to be the best, well-versed contract agents out there. Know your contract. Like, it's not like they're switching contracts on us every 2 days, right? It's the same one. We have great classes online. The board does great classes. There are opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. You should know that FAR contract like the back of your hand, right? So that's core competency number 1. The core competency number 2 is valuation, right? How do we think it's a huge differentiator. How can we become much better at valuing property? Because I think that is a value add to the client, right? If you don't have a really good grasp on value, why are they hiring you, right? I mean, it's just because you passed a flipping test, big deal, all right? My 16-year-old could pass that test, all right? No offense, by the way, but you should take some, all right? The reality is that just because you pass the test doesn't give you the right to separate a seller from 6% of their equity, all right? So or 6% of the total value, which sometimes is 100% of their equity, I should say it that way, right? So with that in mind, we want to get really good at that. And by the way, core competency number 3, there's really 4, but I made it 3A and 3B, so I can still say 3, right? 3A is we're going to have some type of sticky app or something that you can just, technology that's gizmo-y. We're kind of promoting HomeSnap right now because it's free, right? And it's a really cool app that people can have on their phone that you can give to them. That's something you could value add to the consumer, specifically buyer consumer. And then finally, incorporate. If you have not incorporated yourself, still do it for the remainder of this year. I have done December 22nd, 2017, the day which shall live in infamy, is the day they passed the Tax Reform Act of 2018. I've always taught people to incorporate. There's a great class online on why to do it. It was to save FICA was before. Now it's saving FICA and we're getting the benefit as S-Corp people, the benefit of the corporate tax reduction that they passed, from 35 to 21. It's not directly that, talk to your accountant, but make sure you're dealing with an accountant that knows the heck what they're doing, right? Because I just got my estimated 2018 and it's significantly better, all right? Even than just the FICA benefit. So if you haven't incorporated, incorporate it, right? But we're gonna cover number 2 today, all right? I've heard great things about John, all right?
Thanks, Bob.
Manny has been after me for probably a year now, if not more, to get him in, because she's been to several of his courses, right? Yeah. And you might find, because she has shared with me in the past that when she learned what John teaches, and now she gets her clients to follow the process, she has never had an appraisal issue. And Manny does business. How many deals last year, Manny? 66. 66, right? So we're not talking she's never had a deal when she did 4, right? 66 transactions last year and never had an appraisal issue. That speaks highly, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to listen what this guy says. I want you to learn appraisers from an appraiser, right? And learn to think like he thinks. So, John, come on up. You can tell us what you got going on. Thank
Outstanding.
So give him a hand.
I'm going to hand those out. Pass those down. There you go. Pass those around. Bob, thank you very much. And Manny, thank you for being my big champion, right? So as the slideshow says, I'm with Valucentric, and my name's John Barcelo. I am not an appraiser. I just play one on TV. Because none of my appraisers, none of them would come in this room and do this, right? Because they're appraisers. If they had personality and stuff, they'd be in here sitting and listening with you, and they'd be sales agents, right? Because they're appraisers. So Valucentric is a staff appraisal firm. That means all of our appraisers are employees. We're in the 5% of the industry. 95% of the industry is management companies, right? That's all going to change, but you're going to learn about that today. I hit the wrong one. There it goes. So Valucentric employs about 200 staff appraisers in 21 states now. We do commercial and residential. Here in Florida, residential is a far larger piece of our business. We did about 3,000 mortgage-related transactions last year in the state of Florida. We employed 21 appraisers. The guy sitting in the corner back there is one of our clients. We specialize in working with what are called direct engagement lenders. That means lenders that directly engage their appraisal company. They don't use a management company, which is completely legal, and you're going to learn more about that today too. A little bit about me. As I told you at the beginning, I'm not an appraiser, so why is John here to teach me about our appraisal class? just like what I said, none of my appraisers are coming here to do this. I'm the business development and client relations part of the business. I'm the only partner of Valucentric that's not an appraiser, right? So it's my passion in life to teach you guys all the things they never taught me when I was a sales agent, right? Because when I got my license in 1996 and I got a half-page dissertation on price per square foot in valuation, I learned really quickly that that's not how it works, right? So when I got back into the appraisal industry about 10 years ago, nothing had changed, right? The book's still exactly the same. They teach you nothing about appraisal. They teach you nothing about valuation. They teach you everything about pricing, right? So what we're gonna learn today is the difference between price and value. And Manny has gotten very good at understanding that concept because, listen, we're in Florida. There's 110 people moving here every day. The price that you can get them to pay versus the value that the bank is gonna give you are two completely different things, right? Two completely different things. So I was lucky enough back to be born and raised here. I graduated from Plant High School back in '86. My father-in-law founded, my first father-in-law, and I've only had two. I'm on year 26 with my second one. 4 years, married my childhood sweetheart. Her dad founded a little company called Mortgage Contracting Services, MCS. And MCS is now a $7 billion REIT. They're the largest default servicing company in America. I got divorced like 4 years into that. I got none of that money, which is why I'm here today. But I was lucky enough to inspect like 10,000 houses between 18 and 21, do fair market value, rental income analysis. Oh, sorry. So that's kind of how I broke my teeth in real estate. So you fast forward like 15 years or so, and my cousin, who I'll let remain nameless, started a management company up in Safety Harbor, right? And she calls me and she says, John, I have the perfect business for you, because I know you have a real estate background and you've been doing third-party logistics for the last 20 years. That's outsourcing truck drivers and delivery people, warehouse people, right? That's what they did to appraisal. I get the order from First Community Mortgage for $500. I find the cheapest appraiser I can find and I get to keep the difference. So I started working with her. We were doing 200 reports a month. 18 months later, we were doing 2,200 reports a month, right? I'm loving life. I know how to sell third-party logistics, right? So I go to a trade show, and I meet my partner, right? My partner is named Tom Shore, and Tom's like 6'5", and I'm all in a suit like this, and I'm selling him the management theory, right? And Tom looks at me and he says, John, I'm gonna buy you dinner tonight. Please, on me. Come to dinner with him. And about 3 hours later, I texted my cousin and I told her I was having second thoughts about what we were doing, right? Because this guy I met, he used to have 40 employees. And he used to have this beautiful building on Lake Cook Road in Deerfield, Illinois. But because Dodd-Frank came in and implemented appraisal independence requirements, he lost every one of his clients. And he laid off 35 employees in 1 day. And he said, John, you're stealing our money. You're ruining the industry. You got to understand what's going on. So about 2 months later, I changed teams. And I became partners with Tom and Leland Trice in Valucentric. And we started growing this in like 2014. So this was really the reason of Dodd-Frank, right? Because the housing market went to crap and we needed somebody to blame. So it wasn't stated income loans, it was all the appraisers. It was the appraiser independence that was being violated. It wasn't my cousin who had 600 credit score and had 7 rental properties. It didn't have anything to do with that. It was because we were fixing values, right? So they created all these wonderful new regulations, and I'll skip through this one. The appraiser is the guy with the box on his head, in case you didn't know. That's a secret. You're not supposed to know who that is. Big secret. Right? So they started introducing all new legislation like 2009. First HVCC, the Home Valuation Code of Conduct, then that was sent down for Dodd-Frank, right? And Dodd-Frank created the appraisal independence requirements, which there's a full copy of it in there a little bit later. Appraisal independence has nothing to do with you, right? Nothing to do with you. You have every right and in fact are obligated to participate in the process, right? The appraisers are the knuckleheads most of the time that don't play along. But you are not the loan officer. The loan officer cannot speak to my appraiser, no matter what, in any way, shape, or form. He can call me, he can complain all he wants to me. I'm not the one signing the report. But he can't contact the appraiser. You, on the other hand, absolutely can and should, right? Because I pay about $10,000 a year for my staff to be members at Pro. My office is at Pro. I happen to be the affiliate chairman at Pro, and I got a Distinguished Service Award. Bob was there for like 7 years of being in the affiliate program. Thank you very much. We're partners in this game. This is like the 100th presentation I've done in the Bay Area in the last 6 years doing this. And Manny Cape started coming a long time ago because we want to be your partner. We want to teach you what we have to do so we can all be on the same page. Because I'd much rather have this conversation today and 6 months from now when we come in short and be like, John, I knew that was going to happen because I told the people, right? Told them that was going to happen. Industry change. So about 2010, the government implemented what was called UCDP, the Uniform Collateral Data Collection Point. And I'm going into all this for a very specific reason. You got to kind of have to understand all this to know where we're going, right? UCDP, UMDP, all these new technology platforms are all based on something that we're all familiar with every day. So anybody got a smartphone? I love rhetorical questions, right, Bob? Anybody ever open their browser and look for something, right? And then you close your browser and then you go get on your iPad 15 minutes later and the place you were shopping at on your iPhone is now in the sidebar of your iPad, right? That's predictive marketing, right? So using this, back in 1992, a whole bunch of scientists from MIT and Yale, they figured out that, predictive analysis works in anything, right? And especially in appraisal, because it's all numbers based. So if we collect enough numbers and we build a good enough equation behind it, we can predict what that value is going to be before it even comes out. So in 2010, they started data collection points, the Universal Collateral Data Portal, right, UCDP. So any mortgage backed in America, conventional mortgage backed in America by government money, right? So FHLA loaned them the money, any bank, any mortgage lender like Brian, the appraisal must go to UCDP. Must get submitted. So we submit it directly to UCDP. If it's an FHA loan, it goes to what's called EAD, the EAD portal, which just came in this year. Basically what happens is in about 10 seconds, this system grades the report on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being good, 5 being the worst. It puts out 2 types of warnings, a collateral risk warning, which is the structure itself, and a valuation warning, whether we may have overvalued or undervalued this property. So to understand the depth of this, Kim, who's in St. Pete, she submits a report in Eden Isle. In 15 seconds, that system looks at every report Kim has ever done, compares every comparable she has ever used in any report before to the current report that she's using, and it looks for any peers that may have used any of those comparables or the subject and compares that report against all of them, right? And if it gets results that it doesn't agree with, then it spits me out a little report that looks like this. And in this example, this is 27 comparable sales that UCDP said are more reliable than the ones that we put in our report. And they want the appraiser to answer to how come he didn't use all 27 of these sales. Does that sound fun? So Big Brother knows. Big Brother knows before I send the report in what the value is. I'm coloring by the numbers because they know the answer to the test before I give it to them. Okay, before they give me the test, they know the answer. Number 2, valuation and collateral risk, like I was talking about. It clearly spits out right here and has warning, overvaluation warning. This one is appraisal quality warning, right? Has high. So basically what happens when those come back, the lender gets a copy of those. The lender now, from a GSE perspective, from the government backing the loan perspective, if the lender doesn't clear those questions to the GSE satisfaction, they have no buyback opportunity, which means when the people that got the mortgage default, they don't get their money back. That's not good. That's not good at all, right? That's a huge problem. So when any of these errors come up, immediately we got to write paragraph, multi-paragraph dissertations explaining why these issues exist. Do you guys have any idea that this is a level of detail that appraisals are in nowadays?
I have 0.
Yes, sir.
So when the warning comes up and the lender, does this come up, Brian, like LP or DU, or do you see any of this stuff? So then underwriting has to buy into John's explanation in order for it to get to underwriting.
Every time.
Okay. All right.
Every line item, every time. That's exactly. And well, not him, but his processing department and us are like constantly back, forth, back, forth, back, forth.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So when we get notified, hey, great, the home qualifies to not need an appraisal.
Yes.
Is it because these come back so accurate? Or?
No, so in that case, no appraisal's been done, so they're not using this. That's an appraisal waiver, which you know, it is what it is. Have an appraisal company, so I don't necessarily agree with appraisal waivers. But, you know, listen, I'm a consumer too, right? And if I had just bought my house a year ago and I bought it in a great spot and I good equity and I want to go to GTE and get a little HELOC loan, I shouldn't have to pay $500. I got an appraisal a year ago. I've been in the house. Everybody knows the data. So in that circumstance, an appraisal waiver is going to be granted. No appraisals run at all. None. But from, again, a secondary risk standpoint, what most of them are going to start doing in the very near future is just do a property inspection. So it'll be like $125 instead of the $400 appraisal, but an appraiser will go out and do an exterior inspection just to validate that the property is still standing up and the walls are there and it appears to be accurate to what the realtor put in the system.
So what do the banks, do they contact, like, the banks contact you that you've got such an
That's correct. So for some banks, we are the agent and we do this ourselves. So we know instantly and we answer immediately to clear those stipulations. In other circumstances, they get the results and then they feed them back to us via email, which is often the time delays.
So is this what's called the automated appraisal?
No, that's an AVM. That's an automated valuation model. We're going to talk about that in just a minute though. So, but you bring a valid point. The AVMs that are being used today are parsing from this data, right? The government is, the GSEs are sharing all this data with all the other branches of government, but they don't share them with the appraisers and they don't share them with the realtors. We don't get to see it. It's kind of weird, but anyway. So data collection points. And I bring this all up and I spend 10 minutes in this section on purpose, maybe even 15. The government's collected 31 million appraisals in the last 10 years. You are not going to cheat on an appraisal, right? There will be no appraisal fraud. They know. They know, and they know very quickly if something does not make sense. GSEs, lenders, they use predictive analysis on every new loan. They grade it against, that's what we just talked about. The main reason that they do these is to prevent fraud, right? This was all put in place to help prevent fraud, to help prevent someone from, getting 67 mortgages by gaming the system. Average appraisal variance in America is 3%. I don't know why I put it on that slide, but that's just a good stat to have. Some lenders, and I put all lenders use multiple validation, all of them. No one uses just an appraiser. They're running an AVM, they're running the appraisal, and then when the appraisal gets back, unless the first two were perfect, they're probably doing a desk review or some kind of third-party review from CoreLogic or one of the big box houses just to make sure everything's right. Property waivers, like you were talking about, they're being applied. I went to a Collateral Risk Network meeting in New Orleans 2 weeks ago. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac were there. 1.5% of originations in 2018 went waiver. So not having a huge impact on the market. Don't really see it being that much more. And then the future is not eliminating appraisals, but making them more simple and fast, right? Welcome to America. So this is what's coming. Before we learn about today, I'm going to tell you what's coming. Bifurcation, bifurcated appraisals. This is what's coming. So my daughter is a trainee appraiser. By the time she earns her certification, we'll have made her inspect about 1,500 houses. 1 year after she gets her certification, she'll never inspect a house again. Because that's where we're going in America. See all that data that we have? Your appraiser don't need to go to the house anymore. We're going to send some unqualified inspector to go inspect the property, and then they're going to send us pictures of what the property looks like. And then the lender is going to send us a spool of data, and then we're going to compare all that against our own data, and then we're going to give them a reconciled value in 3 days for $200. In 3 years, that's where we're going, right? Scary. Flippin' scary, right? Scary for me buying a house, right? Even scarier for you selling a house, because I'll tell you right now what's going to happen with appraisals. It's going right to the middle of the road. Because when I can't see those cherry wood cabinets, and I can't see those travertine floors, and I can't see the beautiful layout of that home and how it compares to all these other comparables, they're all pretty darn similar to me. And the ranges are going all right into the middle. How does that help you drive market, right? I know it's my job to rein the market, but we rely on you to drive the market. I want to make money on my house in 30 years. Please keep upping the prices. That's what you're supposed to do, right? We'll manage it from the backside, make sure it doesn't go out of control. Bifurcation is a bad idea. Donate whatever you can to RPAC to help fight it. any Appraisal Institute member that you can find, support them. Bifurcation is a horrible, horrible idea. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are all over it. Wells Fargo, US Bank, Flagstar are all over it. It's a problem. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's say that actually goes through. Can the client then choose to spend their own $500 to get a personal appraisal?
No, so that's a key thing about appraisal, and I'm glad you brought that up. The intended user of the report is the lender, not the borrower. Although the borrower pays for the report, they don't own it. The lender owns the report. So the lender can do whatever they think is best, and the borrower has to comply.
So when you're saying Wells Fargo are all over it, they don't want it or they want it?
They want it. They want it faster and cheaper. They want a 3-day appraisal for $200. Now it's 10 days, $500, right?
Are you all over it?
Ultimately,
He's not. No.
ultimately, this just leads to where we were before, where you're gonna have overvalued homes, and then people aren't gonna pay for them, and then the banks are gonna be like, hey, wait, you guys told us, or our bifurcation process told us the house was worth this, and it's really not.
Right. No, it's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yes, sir.
Maybe an off question?
Sure.
But wouldn't that help the homes that don't have the travertine floors? Bring them up to,
So,
But yet
listen.
Overvalued on some and undervalued.
Undervalued on others, and that's the thing, right? So, in our opinion, right, what we do today, figuring out an exact dollar amount to the penny, that's stupid too. That's stupid. Appraisal should be done in ranges, right? That's what we believe. We believe there's a market range, and where your subject lies is somewhere in that range, and it's really subjective. Because I don't like subway tile, but you may love it, right? And I may want, gray slate from Home Depot, and I think that looks beautiful, but if you get restored subway tile, you think that's far more valuable than my Home Depot 89-cent slate tile, right? So how do you tell, right? And how do you go up or down? So anyway, bifurcation, when you see that, like, write letters to your congressman. Appraisal independent requirements does not apply to you. It applies to the lender, and it applies to the appraiser, right? And when I said Brian can't talk to the appraiser, we don't, no one's company policy is gonna allow them to talk to the appraiser, but it's not a federal violation for him to say hello to the appraiser, right? He just can't coerce him. He can't twist his arm. He can't give undue influence, being the proper name. But you guys aren't, right? And I'm gonna teach you some things to do today to give to your appraisers to help you through this process, but understand some of them are just bucket heads, right? And they're just gonna act like, you can't talk to me, you can't. Consider the source at that point and maybe try and get that order reassigned if possible. Unique challenges. So now we're gonna get right into selecting comps like an appraiser, which is why I'm here today. Because no matter what the bifurcation process or whatever that becomes, comparables are still gonna get picked the same way, right? They're just done by computers and algorithms rather than human beings. I'm gonna teach you everything today that is not really gonna change in the next 3 years, okay? The first thing we do when we get an assignment, the very first thing we do is we go to Google Earth. Literally go to Google Earth and look at that house from a topographical standpoint. We look for railroad tracks, cell towers, water towers, elementary schools. Does it dead end into Home Depot's parking lot? Is there a mobile home park across the street? What does the backyard look at? First thing. Because we want to know if there's an ADU. We want to know if there's solar panels. Now look, the Google Earth picture may be 3 years old, right? I'm sorry, accessory dwelling unit, an in-law apartment,
Gotcha.
right?
Treehouse.
Bingo.
That's what I call an in-law apartment, it's a treehouse.
A tree house, there you go. Really prevalent in St. Pete, right? So if I see an ADU in St. Pete, no big deal. But if I see an ADU in Town and Country, big deal. Big deal. No ADUs in Town and Country legally, right? And well, so that's a huge, unique challenge too, right? Because are they gonna finance it? Yeah, tiny houses have a hard time getting financed.
Well, no, but you've got a main house, but they put the mini house behind it.
Yeah.
And they don't have to get a permit for those.
Yeah, it's still an ADU. It's,
I'm
yeah.
wondering how
If
they-
it's not permanently affixed, it's personal property. So that little tiny house has to be on a concrete foundation, or it's just like an above-ground pool. It gets no value. No value if it's not permanently affixed. Just like a shed that's not permanently affixed, no value. It's personal property. So this is what we're looking for. Solar, and that's getting more and more. Guest quarters, illegal uses. I'm going to use Town and Country because I love picking on Town and Country. I grew up there. So, once a month, we will go into a house off Jackson Springs Boulevard or Powhatan or one of those streets, right? And for some reason, there's 2 front doors. It was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house that is now a 2-2 duplex, right? Illegal use, man. You gotta change that back. No good comps, there's always good comps. We're gonna learn about that today. Just be informed, right? That's the number one thing. Do your research on the property up front. That's what we always do. And I'll tell you, we always do that because appraisers pick their comps before they come to do your inspection, right? If you didn't know that, the secret's out, right? They're going to do all their investigative work. They're going to try and pick all their comps before they drive out to do the inspection, because we have to give the lender original comp photos for all the comparable sales. So they want to do it the same day they do the inspection, so they don't have to drive back and forth across town or across city, right? Sometimes it doesn't work out, right? But bet your bottom dollar, the good appraisers, right, they have 3 or 4 comps in their back pocket just in case. Because when they looked at the picture and they read the write-up, it said lovely 4-bedroom, 2-bath. But when they looked through the pictures, one of those bedrooms sure did look like a den because it had a pass-through window to the kitchen. But they're calling that a bedroom, right? So we got some 3-bedroom comps back there just in case, right? That 4-bedroom doesn't work. But do all this early. This is what we have to provide. And I synopsize this for all of our lenders because Brian doesn't set the lending guidelines. Heckman Mortgage doesn't set the, Fannie Mae and Freddie set the mortgage guidelines, the lending guidelines. The lenders overlay some extra stuff on that, but not very much. Whatever Wells does, whatever the big banks do, everybody else just follows them like puppy dogs.
Is it true that you can have considered a bedroom but doesn't have to have a closet?
That is absolutely correct, ma'am. That's absolutely correct. We're going to talk about that in adjustments. Most common lender requirements, you got to have 3 or 4 closed sales. We try to always do 4. Within 6 months, preferably 90 days, but at least 6 months. And then the value has to be bracketed, right? Has to be bracketed. And when I say bracketed, it's kind of like the 3 Little Bears. So you need a comp that's a little better than your subject. You need a comp that's a little worse than your subject. You need one that's like right in the middle, really, really close. You want to bracket your value. You also have to bracket every amenity. And bracketing an amenity means if a house has a pool, at least one of your comps must have a pool. Fireplace, 2-car garage, all those amenities, you have to match them, okay? Sometimes you might get an appraisal and 3 of your comps are within, a half mile of the house. And then you flip to the second page and that 4th comp's 2.5 miles away. And you're like, what the heck is this house doing in there? There was something unique about the subject. Maybe it was on a double lot. Maybe it had an ADU. Maybe it had a workshop or something unique for that neighborhood. The appraiser has to have one of that amenity. So he goes out as far as he has to go to a similar competing neighborhood and pulls that comp into the report. Yes, sir.
So bracketing overrides distance.
That's exactly correct. Has to be bracketed. And that's a Fannie Mae guideline. Yeah. That's not a lender guideline, that's Fannie Mae. If you don't do it, Fannie Mae is not going to secure your loan. No, it's the truth. It's Fannie Mae. And so what the moral of this story is, we can never take 3 sales lower, adjust them all up and give you a value. We have to have one. If you're trying to get 300 grand, I have to have one 300 or higher. I have to. In that market area similar to that house. If I don't, I cannot go to $300,000. There is nothing on this planet. I don't care if you got 14 offers in 4 hours that drove the price up $80,000. We are not going to 300 grand. Have to have a top end sale. Yes, ma'am. Oh, 100 times.
Bracket amenity, you just mean bracketing.
That means you have to have one like it. You have to have one like it. They call it bracketing. It doesn't really mean bracketing. But you have to have one. Select sample. Did you have a question also?
Yeah, to get an idea of when you say a little bit better, a little bit worse, I mean, we're not talking like 70s home, totally not remodeled, all of a sudden the
Correct.
next one up is a fully remodeled house. I mean, what's the...
Correct. We're gonna go into that here very shortly.
Question real quick.
Yes.
When you say you have to have one higher, but I mean, somebody's always gotta be the first.
Yeah, that's a problem, isn't it?
Is it a cash deal or?
Cash or similar competing area, right? Cash or similar competing area. So like we do a lot of new construction, right? And the 2 we worked on yesterday, Manny, right, in Southeast Hillsborough. So if you're in, let me think about it this way. If you're in a brand new subdivision, Bexley, right, whatever. And we do a lot of work for like Lennar and Ryan, right? So I'm the first Lennar house in this subdivision. That sucks. And we always get those first assignments because nobody else on the panel wants to do it. Because we're putting our neck right out on the line for Fannie Mae to chop it off. Because there's no sales in the subdivision. So I gotta go pull one from here, I gotta go pull one from there, I gotta pull one from there, 4 from here, and then I gotta write a book of reconciliation, like 14 paragraphs long, explaining how come there's no subdivision sales, but I believe that all these other sales are representative of what that subdivision is gonna do, right? So that first, it's so hard. And that's new construction. Imagine trying to do that in Seminole. They ain't buying it. It's not happening. Maybe a few years ago, today, no way. And the appraisers won't do it because they know what's coming. They know exactly what's coming. They're gonna get slapped hard. All right, so 2 of the sales need to be closed within 90 days. They want 2 pending sales or active listings in the market area. Can't just go pick them from a mile away like we used to. They need to be in the defined market area of the appraisal. For condos, all comparables in the condo building must be in the report, right? So let's say I'm in, well, I hate using one beach, so let's use something easier. So let's go like 1211 Gulf Boulevard, right? And I'm in a 2.2, 1,100 square foot unit in Sand Key, right? Every 2.2, 1,100 square foot unit in that building that's sold in the last year has got to be in that report. Must
80
be.
of them, if you want.
Might be 30.
Yeah.
All have to be in there. We don't have to grid them all. We might pick the 3 that we want, but in the bottom, we got to put a farm list of what we call a farm list. It's every other sale in there. And trust, when we go and we start doing our search and we get to our 3 comps, that's it. We're not going to the building next door. Your subject is 6th floor. We have 5 comps from 5, 6, and 4. We're not taking an 8th floor comp. I'm not taking a 2nd floor comp. Only what's similar. Right around. Right? Right around. We're going to talk about match pair analysis because I know that's probably what's thinking in your head next is like, well, how do you adjust for the views? If you talk to Fannie Mae, they'll tell you they eliminated these guidelines 10 years ago, but every appraiser in America works off these guidelines. Remember to bracket your amenities. Remember to stay inside your guidelines. So I'm going to give you these numbers on the bottom are the most important part, okay? Net adjustments is 15% max, okay? And then gross is 25. So gross is all the adjustments added up together, okay? All the adjustments added up together is the gross adjustments. Fannie Mae never wants you more than 25% off in adjustments. And think about that. If you're more than 3/4, how similar really are you? Right? You need to be 80, 85% at least, right? But they'll go 75 just to be nice. The net adjustments is the difference between, oh gosh, I hate explaining this. It's the difference between all your adjustments less your concessions, okay? So concessions, let's say you sold the house for $175,000, you guys probably all know this. The first thing the appraiser does is looks in the bottom for concessions. And if that seller gave $3,500, right, we immediately deduct the $3,500 from the sale price. So that house really sold for $167,500.
Assuming the listing agent put that in the MLS.
Assuming, that is absolutely correct.
It's huge.
Yes, but listen, title's gonna find it.
Oh, there you go, okay.
You know what I mean? So even if it's not and we couldn't find it, we're gonna get a revision request 45 days later because title clearance on the backside is gonna catch that and they're gonna be like, hey, correct this. Every time. Okay, and then 10% line item. That's the most important one here. Appraisers never, ever, ever are supposed to go more than 10% for a single line item adjustment, okay? Single line item adjustment. So,
Square footage.
right. So think about this. Pool. Your seller spent 50 grand on their backyard pool patio a year and a half ago, right? Now, dad got transferred, time to sell. Offer comes in, they make the deal, appraiser comes in, they get a $15,000 adjustment for their pool from the house next door. Pretty common, right? 15, 20 grand pool type adjustment. The seller's like, I spent $50,000. Adjustments don't equal value. Adjustments don't equal value. That's like the most egregious example. We had a young lady in Landsbrook real life story. She put $135,000 pool, kitchen, patio, backyard in like a $400,000 house. And then husband got transferred, wanted to sell it for 600 grand. And like I valued it like 505. She's not happy. She's not a happy camper, right? And I love the slide. It was beautiful, but no one's paying 20 grand for it. 10% line item adjustment. Think about you're looking at a completely gutted C2 house like you're talking about, completely updated versus the house that's not. And it's 2,000 square feet. It's about a $350,000 neighborhood. You would think $70,000, there's no way you're ever getting more than a $35,000 condition adjustment for that. And that investor might have just spent 75 grand upgrading that house. And that's all we're gonna give them for condition. Yes, sir.
Ideally, on a 2,000 square foot house, the biggest they want to see is 2,200, and the smallest they want to see is whatever 200 minus times 28 is.
20%.
Okay.
So that's our rule of thumb.
That's what I used to use.
Yep,
so, okay.
20%. Anything with a number, and that's where we're going here. Anything with a number, we want to use 20%, right? So in every single appraisal, you have this statement, this search criteria statement. And literally, this is exactly what ours and our Valucentric, it's a template, and everybody uses the exact same one. So, my comparable search consisted of properties that are between X and X. All the X's are numbers. So, between X and X size, with X and X number of beds and baths, and we never go up or down more than one. Never more up and down than one in beds and baths. Lot size, within 20% of your lot size as well, which sold within the last 90 days and are located within a quarter mile of your subject property. 1/4 mile. This is the first search we're doing every single time. And when we get 4 closed sales and 2 active listings, the search is done. And if you send me a comp 0.26 miles, I'm rejecting it because it's outside the market area that we defined for the for the comparable sales.
So if you have 4 and 2 in step 1,
You're done.
Go to step 2 and 3.
That's it. It's over.
Got it.
Literally. Because again, remember what I just taught you? Fannie and Freddie, that's what they're doing. Closest, most recent, most similar. Right? Now look, there's times where we're going to be in St. Pete and you're driving down, 5th Street and 19th Avenue and you got a neo-eclectic next to a Frank Lloyd Wright, next to a bungalow, next to a Brady Bunch house, right? They all look completely different. Just because they're next door and they sold doesn't mean it's a comp. It has to be a similar, comparable home, right? So don't get too hung up on the quarter. Make sure you're still looking for similar homes. But understand that if you're in Spanish Moss or you're in Landsbrook and you're in one of those little pockets and you search that pocket and you find your foreclosed sales and you're done. You cannot go to the pocket over there where it's 100 grand more, pull one in and thinking you're getting 50 grand higher. Not how it works. Cannot do that.
How can you compare foreclosure?
Okay, so foreclosures, the rule of thumb, rule of thumb is it has to be a predominant foreclosure market for it to be considered. So when you're looking in your market area, are there more arm's length sales or REO sales? If there's more REO sales, unfortunately that is the value of that market. But right now, that's not the case. It's way more arm's length than REO in almost every area. Okay? All right, so step 1, we don't get enough, or we don't have a warm fuzzy, right? We got 3, we got 2, but we're like, we're not sure. Oh, one other thing I didn't mention. Does anybody see price in that search parameter? See, when we look for comps, we hide the sale price column. We select comparables never knowing what they sold for because we're not allowed to pick comparables based on price. We pick comparables based on similarities to our subject property and make adjustments for the differences in their amenities. We never, ever, ever pick on price. Stop picking on price. It's going to change your life. It's going to change your life. We don't feel comfy, we go to step 2. We still don't feel comfy, we go to step 3. If we don't have enough within a year and a mile, and understand these are guidelines, guys, these are guidelines. We did Gerald McCoy's house in Avila. It's a $6 million house. One of the comps came from here in Clearwater. One of the comps came from Colbert Isles, right? One of them came from St. Pete. you're dealing with the $6 million house. There's no mile radius. You're finding similar competing properties, right? So you're at we're working on one right now. It's a 3,100 square foot penthouse condo, St. Pete Beach, 1.75 million, all right? The mile rule just goes out the window. We're looking Tierra Verde, we're looking Paso Gro, we're looking everywhere that we can find penthouse, 3,000 square foot, direct open Gulf view units, right? So understand the theory on the mileage and the time. It's relative to where you are. If you're in a subdivision in Southeast Hillsborough, stick to it like glue, right? You're in a homogeneous subdivision in Northdale and Carrollwood, stick to it like glue. You're in St. Pete, understand what you're dealing with, right? Make sure you're looking for 20s bungalows in the same condition as yours. It might be a mile and a half, it's probably not, but it might be a mile and a half away, but it's probably not. It's probably nestled in that little
What do you do with
area.
like Riverside Heights and Seminole Heights and all those areas?
Yeah, that's tough. You know, you're back and forth, right? And there's pockets in there that have been developed and other pockets that haven't, and we're literally looking at all the sales and all the macro data because that's what the government's doing. So we kind of have to. And we will literally, my next class that I'm working on, and we got to have internet for it, but I think we can do it, is I'm going to show you guys the underwriters, right? And how they grade our reports. Because literally the underwriters sit at their tables nowadays with 3 screens. And one screen is my appraisal, one screen is MLS, and the last screen is the review platform built by CoreLogic that when they roll their mouse over my comparables, it grades them on a scale 1 to 10. It gives them a red, yellow, green light on whether it's good or not. If they one-click detail it, it takes them directly to the MLS listing where they can look at every single picture, pull up the real list report. Man, this stuff is like scary advanced, scary. All right, any questions on selecting comps? This is the money slide right here. Yes, ma'am.
May I get another question?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just thinking, since you're not looking at price when you're picking the comp, every now and then something will cause the price to be dropped drastically to the 40 grand.
Correct.
And so when you end up picking it, you go, oh my gosh, I don't know
Right,
why.
we're always gonna, yeah, I mean, at the next step, we're gonna look at price, right?
Okay.
But in our initial run, all arm's length, all, you know, our hypothetical assumption is that all things being equal, we're only looking for numbers, right? Now, those kinds of numbers, not sale numbers. Now, when we do turn on the bar and we pull down the 7 comps that we think we want, now the price is gonna populate, and if we see one at 120 grand and everybody else is 240, you know, the red flag goes up. Or anything more than 20, 25%, right? Is gonna immediately red the flag, we're gonna research. And you're right, we might end up having to throw 2 out and go back and start, you know, and redo and expand to a half mile and look for some more. But I try to explain it like this. You know, we get taught as sales agents to go a year and a mile, right? Start this way. Look at it like this and only open your microscope as you need it. That's what appraisers do. Appraisers don't look at a year and a mile. Appraisers start at 90 days and a quarter mile and only look out as they need to, right? You do it the same way and you'll be very congruent in what you come up with. Yes, sir.
What is more weight, on the square footage or on the number of rooms?
So if you pull 10 appraisers, 5 of them are going to tell you it's square footage and 5 of them are going to tell you it's the bedroom.
For example, on certain countries, most of the house they got the wrong, the public record had the wrong number on the bedrooms and bathrooms.
Right.
And there is nothing illegal, and you can see there was a bill or something.
Right, right. No, it's, so 2 schools of thought and both of them are acceptable in appraisal. Bedrooms are personal preference. Use of rooms is personal preference, and half of my staff will not give you a credit for an extra bedroom, okay? A 3 to a 4, a 2 to a 3, 1 up or down, they're not gonna adjust. The adjustment's gonna be in the square footage adjustment, right? The other half are not gonna give you square footage, they're gonna give you a $5,000 bedroom or a $7,000 bedroom adjustment, which they can't support, and that's why half of them don't do it. But we're gonna talk about supporting adjustments in 2 more slides. This is the comparable amenities chart, right? So when I was saying pick comps without price, this is what John does, right? So I get a phone call from one of my appraisers that says, John, 123 Main Street, it ain't happening. Ain't no way. I don't know what they were smoking when they signed this contract. This ain't happening today. So, okay, send me the address, send me the deal. I pull out my trusty sheet of paper, right? I'm gonna steal it over here and get some water. And I go and I do that search parameter just like I explained it to you before. And I'm old school, I'm 50, so I pull this piece of paper out, right? And I draw 3 lines on it. I draw one right here, draw one right there, draw one right there. And then I go into MLS and I run my search and I pick my comps. And all I do is I just take my pencil and I check mark any place that I'm going to have to make an adjustment. Okay? I don't write in what the adjustment is. I don't drill to that detail. I just check off where I'm going to need to write the adjustment, okay? Where I'm going to need to do it. By the time I'm done picking my 4 closed comps, I have a very good, like 10,000-foot view of how reliable those comparables are based on the number of adjustments that I have to make. Does everybody understand what I'm saying here? When you're looking at this grid, if there's more than 4 or 5 checkboxes in here, that should probably raise a red flag, right? You know you're going to have a little variance in site size. You might have a variance in age and, bedrooms. Those are your most common, right? But when you get past 5 or 6 adjustments for a comp, you really need to start thinking about, is that truly a comp, right? And is my subject just so unique that I have to have this comp because it has 2 or 3 of the 12 things that my subject has? Nobody has all 12 that my subject has, right? No one has a fireplace, a pool, a ADU, a workshop, a finished basement under their Key Wester, and all that kind of. So you got to kind of get a house that has these 2 and a house that has this and a house that has this to kind of bracketing, right? To patch all that together, because that's what the appraiser has to do. The appraiser has to have representative amenities from every one of his comparable sales. Every one. Whew, so it's a mouthful. So in the comment side, I put little comments in there for what we're looking for, right? So site leaseholder fee simple, that's pretty simple, right? It's either land lease or they own the land. Verify the tax record, MLS. And then here's the other exciting thing. We're gonna start talking about condition adjustments in a second. Appraisers make all of their condition adjustments based on the pictures that you put in MLS. We never go inside a comparable sale. All we can do is read what you wrote and look at the pictures, and we got to figure out what the materials are, what the differences are, and estimate the construction or the cost of the adjustment. It's very difficult, especially like when you look at the pictures and they're like, those little square photos, all right? And we're like, is that the kitchen? What is that? All right, so please help us with the pictures. And when we go to bifurcation, that's really it. Use the amenity chart. Yes, Manny?
All these agents that delete all the pictures out of the MLS, really don't do us a favor.
No, don't do that, please. Right, no. And that's a huge problem because look, I got to go back 6 months to get my comps. Don't delete the pictures. I need those pictures. And the ones that do the reporting for statistical purposes only, I can't use that comp. An appraiser must have 2 verification sources for every comparable. MLS and public records are 99% of the time what we're going to use. But they have to have 2. So when we go to MLS, we see something on public records. It didn't come up on an MLS search. We go into Realist, we find the listing number, boom, we pull the transaction up, and the comments say for transaction purposes only, or for tracking purposes only. That's not a validation source. I have to be able to prove that that home was on the open market competition, arm's length, to justify that it's an arm's length sale like my subject, right? Even new construction. So in that circumstance, two sources of validation, we'll call the branch manager or sales manager. And we'll put their name, phone number, and email on the report as our second validation source. So you can be a validation source. Bob can be anyone with a license can be a validation source, okay? But we gotta have 2 validation sources. So if you see it on public records and it's not in MLS, we cannot use it. Cannot use it.
So that being said, when you get a call from an appraiser that's asking for please.
It's huge.
Trying to, and it's a home you sold 6 months ago, and you just say, I'm so freaking busy, that's his problem, not mine.
No, please send them to me. Yes, Bob, please.
Think if we're John here.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you.
Respond to that and say, hey, look, there were concessions or whatever they're asking for, right?
Yep.
It only takes you, and you can endear some goodwill, all right, and say, oh, I like Manny, she responded to me, at least I'm gonna remember that.
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, they have friends, neighbors, and relatives too.
Absolutely. move.
that all need a house at some point or another, right? So you never know who you're talking to.
You know, when
Yes.
pictures, because I have a seller and he's been bought, and his privacy. So he had gone to the extent of having them removed from
Yeah.
MLS, so
Yeah.
they could actually see.
Yeah, I mean, look, police officers, politicians, DEA agents, we understand they're going to block their stuff, but that's 1% of the market, right? We try to get as much as we can. Any other questions on any of this? On amenities? Nope? Okay.
You're just saying not just randomly not taking
Yeah,
them off.
yeah. Try and make sure they're good quality pictures. Videos are better. All right, condition, rating, and definitions. So your two largest,
Excuse me, but this is on a pet peeve of mine, really, is the pictures that go in don't always, so many of the times don't actually look like the house itself.
yeah, that's my pet peeve too. I'm trying to make adjustments based on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm getting yelled at because my subject has granite countertops, and then I'm looking at a picture of laminate countertops. So I give that house a $10,000 adjustment, and then I get a call from the agent like 3 days later, like, that house had a remodeled kitchen. What are you talking about? And I go, well, the pictures on MLS are not a remodeled kitchen. Here, and they send them to me. Well, it would have been nice if you'd have put those in there before, and then we wouldn't have been doing the dog and pony show, right? Anyway.
So John, for sale by owner.
Yeah.
Everything's no, they are no valid income.
Nope. They didn't have legal representation. We can't prove that that was an arm's length transaction. It's a FISBO. They could have different last names and be brothers, and we have no idea. They can't prove it, can't use it. All right, condition rating. All right, so this is probably what I get outside of GLA, which we're going to cover next. This is probably the biggest area of contention is condition. Yes, ma'am.
So even if for sale by owners in the MLS that just paid somebody $299.
That's different now. That's different. If they listed it in MLS and there's open market exposure, then you're good. Right. But if it's a traditional, he stuck a sign in his yard, neighbor came down, they paid cash, can't use that. Can't use that. Okay, C1. I'm going to kind of go through these and then I'm going to give you the overview, right? So C1, brand new, never lived in. The only thing that can be C1 is a brand new home, which means it has to have a brand new foundation. So even if they took the 20s bungalow in St. Pete and cut it all the way to the foundation, that's not a C1, that's a C2. Can only be C1, never been lived in before. Brand new. That's C1. C2. So everybody familiar with the 4-point inspection, right? All 4 major components must be replaced. 2 years. We're giving you 2 years. All 4 points must be replaced. And we want 2 years. Now look, if your roof is 4 years, we're probably going to give you the benefit of the doubt, right? But 2 years is really what we're looking for. And that means everything. If they did 3 of the 4, it's a C3. We cannot call it a C2 unless all have been replaced. So teach your investors that, especially as we get into a correct market, not a 15, 20% growth market where they can just do whatever the heck they want and the market hides their sins. When we're only growing 4 to 6%, you better be on target or you're not making your profit.
So C2 includes the waste plumbing, which oftentimes would be in, right, because plumbing's a major component. So unless you broke up the foundation and changed that cast iron, you're not C2?
You don't, not the sewer line.
Oh, okay, well,
No, no,
okay.
internal plumbing.
Okay,
All right.
pressure, under the pressure.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then understanding within reason of the age of the home.
I get it.
Right? So if the house is 1997 house and they did the kitchen, the roof, both bathrooms, the floors, right? The AC, but they didn't do they don't have to pipe the whole house, you know what I mean? It was built in 97.
Yeah.
Now, if it's 72, Chinese drywall, right? In a bad square D box, all that's got it, you know what I mean? So it's age dependent, has a lot to do with it, but rule of thumb, if it's not all updated, it is not a C2. It's got to be all updated. So then we go to C3, which is what most of the houses in the market are, right? Because they have some type of update. They did the roof in the bathroom, they didn't do the kitchen in the back bathroom. They did the floors and the master, but they didn't do anything else, right? So it's at some point, it's a C3 because some is old, some is new, it's kind of mixed together, right? And then you might even see adjustments inside a C3 or a C2, but we're gonna talk about that in a second. I got ahead. C4, that's probably 30 or 40% of the market. So, you know, those are your houses that you read the description and it's like, Martha has taken wonderful care of this home for 47 years. She loves it. She kept it immaculately clean. The 1947 oven still works. It's still chest high to pull the, you know, very convenient for you. And the avocado tile in the bathroom looks wonderful. It's not chipped in it or paint or anything. That's a C4. Everything works, it's functional, it's there, it's fine. It's C4, you can get a loan. C5, nobody's getting a loan, right? No one's loaning on a C5 house. This has a material defect. It's got a sinking foundation, it's got some kind of issue. And then C6, like the house burned down, right? So you're only gonna predominantly see C1 to C4. But what you're gonna see inside of 2, 3, and 4, quite often, you're gonna see adjustments inside of these ranges. So they'll put 3 comps that are all C3, but one of them might be adjusted 10 grand, and one of them's adjusted 20 grand, right? Because what the appraiser still has to do, even if they consider it a C3, they have to look at the value of the upgrades as compared to the others, right? Because if all I did is put 89-cent laminate floor, a $99 pedestal sink, and an American Standard bathroom in my hallway bath, right? Versus the guy who spent $45,000 redoing his kitchen and then spent $15,000 on his master bath, they're both C3 because they didn't do everything, but one is spent considerably more than the other. So that's what we're looking for in there is the value. And again, looking at the pictures, this is all picture driven. 100% what we see visually is the only way we can make these calls, which kind of scares me a little bit, but it is what it is. That's the system.
But the condition adjustments are maximum 35,000.
10%. 10% line item. Maximum 10% line item. So if your house is 150 grand, 15 grand is normally the most you're ever going to see in a condition adjustment. 10% of the value, single line item. Quality ratings, these are way more subjective. Condition ratings, they're not very subjective. It either is replaced or it's not, right? Quality ratings is judging the quality of construction, right? So we do a lot of new construction, so I'll start like here, right? So Q1, that's your St. Pete or Beaches McMansion, right? It got knocked down. They rebuilt a steel metal frame 18 feet off the ground with 3,000, mile per hour hurricane reinforced triple pane windows, and they got 4 elevators and a basement bunker, and they can live for 3 years without electricity. Q1. Q2, so now we're going to like a Marconi custom home, high end of Toll Brothers. You probably got an architect, you probably had some plans drawn up, you probably got to pick your own options from specialty stores, not from Home Depot. So you also have thicker wood beams in your headers, you have longer nails, your roofs are constructed of higher level quality, your pipings are better, your appliances are more high end than the average home, but they're not quite here yet, okay? Q3, now we moved to Landsbrook, right? We're in that $400,000 to $600,000 range, and I hate to throw value on it because value changes by area, obviously, but it's a pretty good builder, right? It might be a Lennar home, but it's their upper tier, right? It's the upgraded level, in the special little gated community in the corner. That's your Q3s. Then your Q4s, that's everybody else, right? That's KB, Ryan, Lennar's base models. It is what it is. I do work for all these people. I love them. It is what it is. You're getting FHA grade carpet. You're getting 99-cent slate tile. You got 4 color packages to pick from. Don't try and make any special changes or alterations or just a little bit, stay in the box. That's your Q4 construction. Q5 and Q6, nobody gets a loan on either one of those. So that's Jamaica and all those places. You don't get a loan on a hut in America. So yeah, Q1 to Q4, we're never gonna change Q categories. Never, ever, ever, ever. Always match your qualities, always. Don't give me a $600,000 Toll Brothers home for your $418,000 Lennar, okay? Gotta be the same quality of construction. No going up or down there. All right. I don't yet, but I'm trying. Pulte and D.H. Horton are the 2 we're trying for really hard. Huh?
Q4, I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, KB and all that, it's all the same. Look, we need that, right? We need that. Because they can't afford to live over here, man, by and large, right? Whew, and the jobs aren't here. Okay, GLA, adjustments for gross living area. Okay, so the number one issue for 10 years of doing this, number one issue. Appraisers never use price per square foot. Never, ever, 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 right? I've explained to you how appraisers pick comparables based on amenities and all those search parameters, right? But I wanted to explain to you why or what justifies your GLA expense or your GLA adjustment. So you see a gross living area adjustment, typically it's $35 to $75 range per square foot. And the number one question I always get is, John, these houses are selling for $200 in the neighborhood. Why am I getting a $50 GLA adjustment? Why am I only getting $50 credit per square foot? This is crazy. But you shorted me like $30,000. Well, you got to understand, GLA is just that, GLA. I'm going to tell you a sidebar. A year ago, 2 years ago, FEMA put this rule, Federal Emergency Management Agency, right? You can only rebuild up to 50% of your core home value. Core home value, the part you live in, not your carport, not your back patio, not your front patio, not your laundry room, not your sidewalk that you walk up to your house on. None of that counts. In fact, none of the land that the house sits on counts. The actual improved structure itself, we have to isolate that value, and you can only improve to 50% of that value, right? Done 50 of them this year for general contractors. That is the same premise of GLA. GLA is only where they live. It doesn't include the garage, the patio, the sewer main going out to the street, the underground cable, the electrical wires coming in through the top of the house. That's all part of price per square foot. They're only adjusting for living space. So the rule of thumb is 30 to 40% based on your value range, okay? 30 to 35% more often than not. So if I'm doing a house under $250,000, more than likely my GLA adjustments are $50 a square foot. If I'm over 500,000, they probably go to like 75 to 100. If I go over $1 million, they might get up to 100, 100 and a quarter. That's it. And the biggest thing I see is, or we see all the time, house A, 1,000 square feet, sold for 100 grand. House B, 1,500 square feet. Agent comes in, says house next door sold for $100 a square foot. 150 is our sale price. You get an offer in 2 days. Happens every day. Come to my office every day. We go out and we appraise it. We adjusted it at $50 a square foot. So now you're $25,000 short. We come in at 125 as the value. Because you priced it at 100, we valued it at 50, right? So understand that when you're doing your GLA adjustments up and down, you're not getting price per square foot on those adjustments. You're getting roughly 30% because it's only the living space that you're getting credit for. Has everybody got that?
Yeah, but it ends up being the people who listen in, you need to take that out of them.
Well, show them my slide. Show them the slide.
You laugh. This is
I know. I'm not laughing. I know.
This is going to a listing presentation.
No, I want you to. I don't care. Why do you think I give it to you?
Well,
I'll email it to you
I'm
too.
saying it, you know, with the board, because with MLS, with that put in, because then you end up with your client having seen the listings, and it's like, why is I had that.
Because you're salespeople, so you're driven to drive, your goal is to drive the market, right? So they want you to think from a sales perspective. Sales, 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 sales. Sell. Simple concept for consumer. X times X equals X, right? They're not the knowledgeable professionals that we are. So we have to make it very simple for them to understand, right?
I know, but the square footage difference was, I found it to be quite a conflict.
I know. I completely agree with you. I completely agree. We're trying to make this a CE class for the realtor boards. We're trying really hard right now. Yes, ma'am.
35% to what? What was kind of that range?
30 to 40.
30 to 40.
Yeah, with 35 probably being a good median in there. Understanding the value of your house has a lot to do with it, the value of the property. I'm sorry?
What I'm saying is it needs to be taken out of the MLS for public use.
Oh, I gotcha.
That
So John, like in that scenario, 1,000
Yes.
square foot, 100 grand, 1,500 square feet, we thought 150, came in at 125. However, there may be some adjustments up from that 125 if other things,
Yes.
lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just taking apples and apples.
Great structure.
Everything's exactly the same. One had the long family room built on the back and one didn't.
Right.
Right? One had the 20 by whatever family room add-on, one didn't. All things being equal. Now the house next door might have a pool. This one doesn't. One might be a 1-car, might be a 2-car. So all those are taken into, but just apples to apples, understand the GLA.
Would have taken, okay, 150 for that. Now we got a pool, let's add another.
Exactly.
So they would have upped it already.
I found houses selling at 2.25 just a mile away, John. Tell them to look over there. Oh, sorry. Did I say that out loud? I'm just kidding. You know I'm kidding because I care. All right, adjustments. So we already talked about the largest adjustments in most appraisal reports are GLA. Everybody understands the GLA adjustment now. And then quality and/or condition. I shouldn't say quality. It should just say condition, right? Because really that's what it's about. And what's going to end up happening as we move forward, right? And I scared y'all in the beginning about the 3-year bifurcation. Well, what the appraisal industry said to them is like, if you want to do that, that's fine. Mandate that nationally, a home inspection must be done on every home purchase in America. And the home inspection must be provided to the appraiser. Does that sound like a good idea to y'all? Sounds like an awful idea, doesn't it? I don't want to see that home inspection, man. If you got something with the roof that needs to be cleared, only send me the roof section, please. I don't want to know. I do not want to know, because if I know, I got to tell. If I know, I got to disclose, right? No, I don't want to see the whole home inspection. So anyway, quality or condition. Make sure you know what the condition is, and make sure you're comparing it truly to your other ones, right? Because C2, I left this part out. C2. My first house here in Clearwater was at 1427 Berry Street, right? Lovely little 1,300 square foot house and right down from the YMCA. And, it's time to remodel because it was one of them old houses. So I was young and dumb, right? So go to Home Depot and I buy me some knockdown cabinets and buy some looks like granite countertops and, and all this stuff. And I spend like, I don't know, 10 or 12 grand like remodeling the house and we think we're all good. We get laminate floors, we get those pedestal sinks I was making fun of earlier because my wife thought they were pretty and they were only $99, right? So we got those. And we think we're all cool, right? And then my neighbor next door, he's from Canada and he's a NASCAR mechanic, so he flies in and out, blah, blah, blah. And he's a single guy and he don't have any kids and he's got more money than God. So he's in there dropping like 12-inch Italian marble, and he's redoing the AC, and he digs a pool, puts a pool out in the back, and I'm thinking he's over improved for the neighborhood. But, that isn't what the bank thought, right? The bank comes in, and I'm thinking, I just remodeled my whole house. I did everything like I was supposed to. So did he, and they used his house as a comp, and they gave him like $20,000. They took 20 grand from me. Although I did the AC, I did the floors, I did the kitchen. But see, Graham, he bought 42-inch wood cabinets. And he bought granite that looked like granite, that was granite, right? And he bought real wood floors. And he didn't just use the 2-inch crown molding that I bought with the corner pieces, so you didn't have to miter them. You just stick the corner piece in and man, nail it, go. Hey, man, path of least resistance, baby. Right? No, he actually had like a carpenter come in and cut his corners and use 6-inch rounded and put a little square detail underneath, right? We're both C2, but the levels of finishes are night and day, right? So we both might be C2 in the grid, but I got a $20,000 adjustment next to me because the level of my finishes are not on the same level as his. Does everybody understand that concept? Yeah. So when you're looking at those things, make sure you're comparing apples and apples in your conditions because the appraiser has to, absolutely has to. Absolutely.
Level of finishes is quality, is it not?
I mean, not to an existing house, right? So quality is like, how was it originally built?
Okay.
How is it constructed? Today is how are you updating it and what have you done to renovate it?
A 15-year-old Alvarez home versus a 15-year-old Lennar home or something like that.
Bingo.
I got it. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I got a question. Years ago, I learned somewhere that to tell the clients that it takes about 10 years to recover your upgrades. Is that still the rule of thumb or not?
I think that's probably pretty accurate, yeah. I think that's probably pretty accurate. And I think it's probably why most home builders put a 10-year warranty on their house, because they know at 10 years in a day, you're gonna have to replace the air conditioner, and garbage disposal is gonna go out, you need new floors, and yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Match pair analysis. So I'm pretty sure the next slide is match pair. Yes, it is. So adjustments are all based on match pair analysis, and you're gonna learn how to do that today, okay? Can be greater or less than the cost of the improvement. Like I was talking about before, the person that spends $35,000, $50,000 on a pool area and then 2 years later has to sell their house is not gonna receive $35,000 to $50,000 worth of value, more than likely, in their appraisal. It can be subjective and experience-based, and actually you could just scratch through that because it cannot be subjective. It can be experience-based, but it must be market-derived. Must be. That means they have to be able to support their adjustment with math and black and white data from MLS, okay? And I'm gonna teach you how to do that in a minute. Agents have all the tools, because I taught you today. Like, we make all of our adjustments based on what?
MLS.
On what?
MLS data.
MLS pictures and data, right? She's listening, that's right. So you guys all have access to everything that we do. So match pair analysis, in its simplest form, okay? Pools are the easiest way to use because it's Florida. House A, 3.2, 1,800 square feet. House B, 3.2, 1,804 square feet. I'll give you 4 square feet just to mess it up. We're not going to adjust less than 100 square feet anyway, more than likely. The only difference between these two homes is one has a screen patio pool and one does not, okay? So what the appraiser is supposed to do is use matched pair analysis from that market to justify the adjustment, which is just this. All the 3.2 model homes within 20% of that size with no pool in the last year, or maybe even 2 years, as much as you can get, we put them all on one cell. And then we go and we look for the same similar homes with pools in that 2-year period, and we put them in the cell adjacent. We add them up individually, we divide them by the total number of entries, and we compare the difference of the two averages. The difference of the two averages is your justified adjustment. For the pool.
Yeah, right.
You could do it for a fireplace, you could do it for, outside lanai. Now where it gets more and more tricky is when you add more and more amenities, right? So when you get more and more differences, it becomes that much more difficult, and hence why you see sometimes appraisals take longer than what they're supposed to take, because you get digging in the research time. Because can you search by fireplace, right? Can you search by ADU? They literally got to go through 80, 90, maybe 100 sales, one by one by one, opening and reading, looking at the pictures, opening, reading, looking at the pictures. Because that's the only way we can find it. It's craziness, but that's how it works, right? Match pair analysis. You have the ability to do the same thing. You have the absolute ability to do the same thing. Let's say your subject has a brand new roof. You're in a neighborhood that's like 28 years old. So you're right on that cusp. Your subject has a new roof. Nobody else on that street has a new roof. But as you're driving in and out of the neighborhood, you see 4 or 5 houses that have, okay? Match pair analysis for your roof. Because that has been replaced versus all the other ones on the street that have not. So you're going to look at all the similar homes with new roofs and without. And it might be you're driving down the street, writing down the addresses for the ones that you can tell are new roofs, so that when you go back home, you can do the research. And literally that's what we have to do as appraisers to figure some of this stuff out.
But you are reliant on those houses having sold them last
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're hoping.
Yeah.
We're hoping and praying that they did, that we have the data.
Doesn't that, originally you had said within 90 days or 60
Yes, but this is just for the matched pair study. So this is just one of the amenities, and we have to isolate that amenity.
What's the value of a pool in this neighborhood?
Right, and
What's the value of a garage or a third car garage as opposed to a 2-car? You can do that Excel spreadsheet.
that's exactly right,
There you
Bob.
are.
You're exactly right. And it's the same thing, 3-car versus 2-car, 5th bedroom versus 4th bedroom.
assuming everything is the same in those comps.
Well, within that 20% range. So as long as, it doesn't have to be exactly 1,500. It can be 1,300 to 1,800 square foot range. As long as it's similar in that similar 20% magic number, 20% similarity range, then you're safe to use it for the analysis. You don't want to take outliers, obviously, right? You don't want to take stuff that's more than 30% of value or lot size or anything like that. So this just kind of recaps everything that I told you. Just isolate the individual amenity, compare the sale prices, figure out the difference, and literally that's it. It's matched pair analysis. All right, be prepared for the appraiser. So this, I used to get a lot of pushback on this, not so much anymore, right? So when I first started doing these like 6 or 7 years ago, everybody was like, why do I gotta do the job for your appraiser? Why do I gotta do their job, give them all this stuff? You're not giving them their job. You're not doing their job. You're getting a commission check, right? This is part of your job. You wanna get this thing to the closing table, don't you? Do you yell at the title agent if he asks you for a document? No, you get the freaking document because you want your check, right? I can't cut the check. Brian cuts the checks, right? But you're not getting the check unless you play along. So anyway, paint the picture for the appraiser. As we learned today, the appraisers aren't personality-based people, most of them, right? They're nice people, don't get it wrong. But they're more than likely not type A is gonna call you on the phone, strike up a conversation, okay? They're gonna call, they're gonna be very black and white, they're gonna be like, how old's the house? If they even interview you, right? Any improvements been done? That's what our staff's gonna do. They're gonna ask you about 6, 7 questions on the phone before they schedule the appointment so that they can help filter their comp selection, right? But over and above that, put this together for them, right? Put it together. Email it to them if you can, leave it at the house if you have to, but understand what I told you, that they pick their comps before they go do the inspection. So you wanna get this to them before the inspection, right? Because they've already picked their comps when they get to your inspection. So make sure you get this to them before the inspection, okay? Before the inspection, if at all possible. Clear signed copy of the sales contract. I have 3 orders on hold right now that we don't have clear signed copies of the sales contract or addendums are missing. I know, it's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. And I have to call the agent, they're like, what? And I'm like, exactly. Any disclosures, plat, survey, elevation certificate? Look, we don't need a survey on every property, but if it's an oblong piece with some kind of issues, like we talked about in the beginning, have that ready. Have that prepared in advance, right? If they're in a flood zone and they got an elevation certificate to bypass the additional insurance, man, get that to the appraiser. In certain neighborhoods, that could be $12,000, $14,000 a year. That is marketable and that makes a difference, right? So get that to them. List of recent improvements to the home, and I'll add to that, receipts. Receipts. It's easy nowadays to say, those are wood cabinets. Receipts. We want to see receipts, if at all possible. And if you're saying, I have 42-inch Brazilian cherry wood cabinets, I got imported floors, I got a Sub-Zero fridge, I can see the Sub-Zero fridge, but the other stuff could be subjective and you could fool a lot of people. So we prefer receipts. Now look, I'm in $1.7 million in Snell Isle. Okay, you don't have to give me receipts, okay? But I'm in Seminole or Pinellas Park in a $225,000 house and these people just put $40,000 in the rehab and are doing it, right? Get us the receipts of what it is so that we can validate exactly and get you the most that we can get you. That's what helps us do that, right? Closed sales, pending sales, active listings. Pull out that amenity sheet, right? Pull out the amenity sheet that I showed you before on how you picked your comps, pull your sheets out, and bring that little packet if you're gonna meet them in person. Or when you talk to them on the phone, use some of the language that I taught you today, right? That's sales 101, mirror your prospect, right? Talk to them in the language that they understand. And when you start talking about condition adjustments and match pair analysis and how you did a quarter-mile, 90-day search, and you're not leaving the market area because you found the actives and solds that you need,
Step 1.
the discussion is going to change immediately. They're either going to hang up on you because they're 68 and they want to hear you, right? Or they're going to be like, thank goodness, I have a realtor that actually knows what they're doing. Oh, thank goodness. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes?
I love when I read a listing, it says brand new AC, and then in brackets it says installed 2014. Can you define a list of recent, what you mean by recent? Is it within 12 months, 22 years?
2 years.
Okay, 2 years, okay.
We'll give you 2 years, but I see the same thing. AC, new AC, 2012.
Right, exactly.
Dude, it's 2019. Come on, man.
Exactly.
Come on, 7-year-old new AC. Yeah, barely, slightly used. Yes, ma'am.
You should have said AC replaced.
Hold on 1 second, I can't hear. Yes, ma'am?
Happened a few times, then appraiser wasn't aware, then there was the price change, or there were addendums.
Yep. Happens to us. Happens to us all the time. Oh my gosh, you came in $4,000 short. We had this addendum, blah, blah. Like, no, we made contract price. What are you talking about? Like, no, they changed. They made a concession, blah, blah. We raised the price. Guess what? No more concession. The appraisal already got delivered. You think I'm going to go back and jack the price up $4,000 now? I don't like Fannie Mae letters coming in the mail. No, I don't like those letters. Whew. So yeah, that's why I'm saying, make sure we got it up front, right? And you know, if you had a price change, ask the appraiser, did you get the addendum with the price update? Did you see the appraisal contingency on page 12? There's a reason why I'm calling you today, right? And that's how you use this. That was the whole point of this class. Like, how do you use it? Well, if you're the seller, right? I understand that the sellers are going to drag you where they drag you, okay? I sat in the chair. And when Miss Jones sits across from me and swears that her house is worth $300,000 and it's the nicest house in the neighborhood, I'm not going to convince her otherwise. And if I argue with her and I defeat her, I lost anyway. Because I'm not getting a freaking listing, am I? Right? So what does it do good to me to go in and argue with her? Okay, Miss Jones, how about I make a deal with you? I know this guy, John. He taught me a whole bunch of stuff about appraisal. And being that like 98% of the people that are coming in this house are going to need financing to buy your house, I'm kind of leaning what he said. But I love you. I know, like, and trust you, and I hope you know, like, and trust me. So I'm going to make a deal with you. We're going to put this house on the market for X amount of days at your price. And we're going to see what kind of traffic and what kind of offers we get, right? You guys have heard this before. But at 30, 45, 60 days, I've already spent $3,000 in marketing and time. I'm not your personal, slave here. So we're going to drop the price to where I know it's going to sell at this point. You good with that? Right? And it works. I know it works because I get those deals all the time. You can't talk them off the ledge half the time. 4 or 5, hold an open house and put a list of improvements for people to write. Or what do they call that, Brian, when they do the open houses and they put that list for opinions, feedback, what is that? You put the feedback deal out there, and then you let the people come through and go, man, this house sure could use a coat of paint. The mildew in the master bathtub sure should be chipped away. Concerned about the cracks in the pool deck area, right? And you get down to your open house and you're like, see why I told you this house is worth $276,000, Miss Jones? I know you think it's worth $300, and I wish I could sell it for you for $300, but more than likely, the person that comes and buys it's gonna need a financing, and this is what's gonna get financed. So you can let it go by, right? And we can wait another 6 months, you can find another agent. Anyway, that's just me. That's why I'm not an agent, because I'm not very pliable, right? And be like, my way or highway, get out. I don't need you, go. Go to the next. All right, close pending active listings. Listen, have some conviction in this, do your homework, pick these right, and your life is gonna change with dealing with appraisers if you're having a problem. Neighborhood and project information, one of the big issues that we have, especially like in North County, condos, townhomes, comparing unlike places, right? So you can't compare some place that has tennis courts, racquetball, a pool, and a golf course to 2 buildings, right, with a community pool, right? Those aren't the same, those aren't equal, and we're not gonna make adjustments for those kind of PUD type amenities. So make sure your projects are very similar when you're in that. PUD amenities, same thing. Like I told you on the condo deal, PUDs are the same way, right? If the house is in a PUD in like Spring Hill, Pasco, huge thing. House is in a PUD, all the comps gotta come out of a PUD. If I have a community pool, that's like your biggest hit, is when you see the community pool on the back. All those comps gotta have a community pool. I'm not going into the non-PUD neighborhood that's literally 1 block outside the wall. I can't do it. I gotta stay inside that PUD. Normally that keeps you higher, but not always, right? Gotta stay in the PUD. And then if the PUD has special amenities, think Wesley Chapel. What is that, with the new Ocean Beach? What is that thing called up there? The Lagoon? You think you're taking comps from the subdivision down the street with no lagoon? I know, right? That's the tough part. So how do we determine?
You go to a lagoon neighborhood in Orlando? I mean, what do you do?
So we do match pair analysis. And we go to, just like what we talked about, we go to the competing subdivisions.
Based upon,
You got it. And we look for similar homes, similar size, similar age, similar condition. What are they selling for in the PUDs adjoining, outside, and what are they selling for inside? What's the difference? That's the justification. But we're not going to try to do that. You know, we don't want to do that. Match pair for a pool or an amenity is one thing. Location, that's very difficult to do it that way. Yes, sir.
So-
I'm sorry.
Question on if there was three, your subject property and within a quarter mile, three of the exact same model home. Your subject has a pool, and one of those three within the quarter mile has a pool. Would they go and use three within, let's say, a half mile that had a pool, instead of three within the quarter that were the quarter mile that were the exact same model?
It depends on the neighborhood,
Okay.
right? More than likely, it wouldn't matter. Closer, and being that you have one representative is more reliable. But again, it depends where you are. Like, my parents had a house built in Northdale, right? And I lived on Lonesdale Place. Bay Homes built our little section. One street over was US Homes. I mean, their houses were considerably better than ours. But
This is the exact same. This is
no,
a PUD community.
I understand what you're saying.
This happened to me, and there was one house on the same street
Mm-hmm.
that I couldn't get the appraiser to use, which was the exact same model.
Because it didn't have a pool.
Because it didn't have a pool.
That's unusual. That's really unusual. Were there not a plethora of pools? Were there only 2 pools in that
There was only
subdivision?
3 pools in the entire subdivision. It was 180 days.
Yeah. So that's kind of your impact, is that how does the market react? So when you have a very small amount of data, you can't prove that the market is right? Because there's 3. So how do you really do a match pair analysis? Because you got 112 on this side of the ledger and you got 3 on this side. So is that really a fair comparison? So that's where you kind of got middle marketed. And that's Fannie Mae. He's not going to take you up, because if he takes you up, he'll slap you right on the back of the neck. So they're going to go conservative when given. I'm sorry. I want to ask you how old he was. Or she. Yes, ma'am.
On the match pair, so when it comes to outbuildings, so equestrian property, arenas, and a lot of stuff.
Right.
Does match pair work when you're?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for the ADUs, absolutely. And that's the best way in St. Pete, right? That's absolutely the best way.
I mean, for like equestrian properties?
For equestrian
Horse properties?
horse properties,
So, a barn.
Right.
An arena, a big shop.
right? Pretty similar. So we're going to look, so you got to look at it this way. How finished is the ADU, right? In kind of, in not to the dollar, but in relative terms, what was the investment for that ADU?
But not a dwelling, not an accessory, not.
I understand, in comparison to, because the chances that you have multiple equestrian centers to compare to are slim.
Right.
Unless you're in that specific, very specific Ocala, right, market, right? So what I'm trying to explain is that an ADU, a machine workshop built out back, an equestrian barn built for high-end horses, an appraiser more than likely is going to see those all as similar in value. As long as the cost and the substructure, you know, your barn is a steel structured barn, or it might even be a wood barn, but it's 3 stories, it's got running water, it's got bathroom, it's got all stalls. And then the workshop is, you know, it's a steel workshop that he put out back, but it's legal. And inside of it, he's got his lathe machine, he's got a wood grinder, he's got his cutter. You know, personal preference, horses versus wood hobby, but relatively they're similar.
So they don't use the, like the rebuilt valuation?
Not in market sales appraisal. We do that in insurance, or we might do that if we were remodeling to do a feasibility study, but for like purchase money mortgage, no. And that's everything we're talking about today is purchase money mortgages. Like, that's it. Sales, table. When we go outside of the realm, it's a completely different discussion. This is just purchase money.
That's the interesting thing is, in fact, it's an appraisal on a property, just say 220, and then they turn around with your insurance is only for the house alone. insurance values your house, so what you end up having the cost of, which is your land value too.
Right?
They don't insure, the insurance does a total different valuation.
Yeah, completely different.
They take a look at reconstruction costs.
Yeah, it's replacement cost versus market.
Right.
Yeah, that's replacement versus market.
Right.
And then so much goes into that on what can you rebuild, where are you, and that, so that it's a completely different kind of process. Did you have a question?
I did. Is there a big adjustment between a flood zone that requires insurance and doesn't within the same neighborhood?
So that's going to depend on, one, we're only going to use comps that are in the same flood zone. Okay? If you're an AE, you're only getting AE comps. Yep. Now, you might be an AE with the flood cert that says you're exempt from insurance. That's where I was talking about. Get me that, because that's marketable, that's value. That could be $1,000 a month off of your bills. That might warrant, a $5,000 adjustment, Because in the bottom of the appraisal, one of the good things is there's a bunch of blank lines, so we can type in extra stuff in there. And there might be something unique like that, like flood insurance, that we adjust for. Because the neighbor has to pay 11 grand a year and you don't. All right, cool, good stuff. All right, painting the picture for the appraiser, then comparable sales. We talked a lot about this. So one of the things that the appraiser always does, the appraiser always measures the house, or at least they're supposed to, okay? So there's a million apps that you can get for your phone or your iPad that do this automatically for you electronically. If you don't have it, get one. Measure the house, verify it, because public records is wrong 80% of the time, 75% of the time, it's wrong, right? And especially aged houses that have been added onto. This brings me to add-ons, right? And I'm going to teach you some wording for add-ons. Yes, sir.
You measure exterior then minus? How do you guys teach measure?
So we do the exterior, that is correct, and do minus. And then if it's close to public records MLS, we'll leave it at that. If not, we're measuring every room. We're literally measuring every room.
And then if I did the exterior minus with the minuses, right? Do I minus, so there's a closet that houses an air handler, right? Is that part of livable square footage? And not, right? Okay, so what is considered livable and not livable square footage? Give me some examples of not livable things I have to minus out of my envelope.
Your patio,
Okay.
your garage, anything that's not heated and cooled, or even if it's heated and cooled and it does not match the rest of the structure, it does not count.
You say match, like central inside and I got a window unit on the patio, I still can't count that?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect.
And another example, they converted the carport, but they didn't raise the floor. So when you step down out of the living room, you like almost break your ankle stepping in that 5-inch step. That doesn't match. That's not GLA. When they took the French doors and they banged the sliding glass doors out and they put French doors, and they did a wood frame T111 family room off the back of their concrete block house with stucco, that does not match. That is not GLA.
Even if it's permitted and all that?
That's different. If it's permitted, we have to count it, right? I know, isn't that crazy? But if it's not permitted, here's the rule, and I'm going to tell you exactly what the selling guide says. If the remodel has been done or the addition has been done in a workmanship and professional-like manner, in the appraiser's opinion, and it matches the interior and exterior of the subject property, it's allowable. So I get to, we get to make the call when we go out. If it looks like this, we're gonna be like, cool, professional, workmanship, matches, everything, great. But the T111 example, no permit, no tiki, no laundry, you're not getting GLA for that more than likely you're not.
But in a David Weekly home with an air-conditioned laundry room, that's not living space, you're getting.
That's living space,
Yeah. Okay.
right, that's living space. More than likely, and we don't get that ticky-tack.
I get it, I just wanted
Yeah,
to-
there's a in our measurements, there's a sketch program. So as you do the measurements, you put it in there and all that Bob's talking, it does it automatically behind. So I couldn't even tell you what the formulas are because I haven't seen them in 10 years probably at least. Because computers do that nowadays. All right, as much as you can, verify the square footage, reporting function in MFR, we talked about that and how important that is. Realist, Realist compiles MLS and public records data, so double check your Realist records. That's another place to make sure you got discrepancies. And then email your documents to the appraiser prior to the appointment. If you can't, leave the comps there for them, leave the paperwork packet on the counter with the little little envelope that says for the appraiser. Some cookies. Gas cards. Gas cards are very popular. Too funny. Too funny. All right, so this is like my last slide, right? So we're ahead of time. We're doing good, man. Doing good today. So reconciliation of value. So this is the part I was talking about earlier that I think is kind of silly, but it is what we have to do today. We literally have to pick a number-specific value, point in time is what they call it in the appraisal industry, a point-in-time value. So based on that sales contract, after the inspection, which is the effective date of the appraisal, we have to assign that subject property a specific number. So literally what we do, right, it's called reconciled value. We're going to look at that range that we were talking about before, right? In this neighborhood, based on these search parameters, we came out with about 20 comps, right? And their range was 100 grand to 200 grand. And then we narrowed it down a little more because we got rid of all the 2 bedrooms, we got rid of all the 4 bedrooms, we just narrowed it down to just the 3 bedroom, 2 baths, just like my subject, right? So now I got it narrowed down to here, so now I'm like 130 to like 175, right? I got my little range narrowed once I did them out. Now, where does my subject fall on that range, right? Where? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at all the sales in that range and I'm gonna compare my subject to it. Does it go on the low end, maybe with the houses that haven't been maintained, haven't been painted, haven't had the roofs updated? Does it go in the middle, where maybe they did the roof, but they didn't do a master bathroom or they didn't do flooring? Or does it go all the way to the top, where they've got new roof, new floors, new kitchens, new bathrooms? Where do I lay? Or maybe somewhere in between one of those, right? That's the hardest part of appraisal for you guys. That's the hardest part of appraisal for me, right? Is like, where exactly do we land in that range? Don't worry about trying to hit the specific number. Narrow the range. You get the range. Don't worry about the exact, Manny and I talk about this stuff all the time. You don't have to worry about the exact range. You're gonna know the value after being through this class, reading those comps. You're gonna start getting a gut on value. Because when you look at these, you're gonna see the range and you're gonna be like, wait, this is the only one at 260. This is the only one under 220. Most of them are 230 to 258. John's teaching me, I'm remembering. And I'm looking at these, mine's only a 3. The ones over 250, they're all 4s. Those don't count either. Now I'm 249 to 230. And you just keep chipping away until you get to the core of where you should be. And look, it might be 5 grand. Okay. None of this is gonna be an exact science to the penny. I'd be lying if I stood up here and taught you I could teach you to do that. I can't. You just get a gut for it, right? And then normally 3 to 5 grand, you can always make that work on a $250,000 deal. Yes, sir.
Talk me out of this.
Sure. I'll try.
Talk me out of why I wouldn't just hire, if I'm gonna take a listing,
Right.
someone like you and your company to come in and talk with the seller and say, let's get this thing hammered out now. I'm not saying we have to list there, but let's get a independent, third party, not looking at the values, all these kind of things, and come, because 98% are gonna end up needing an appraisal anyway. We're not gonna be able to sell this appraisal, but then I get that.
Right.
We're not gonna make it an FHA appraisal, because we don't want a 093 number attached to it.
Right.
Right, we don't wanna do that, but just so I know, so that down the road, when I get it, and somebody else comes in, and the appraiser the new appraiser tries, I have, now they might be 94 days old, right? We might have to do some adjustments, I get that, but talk me out of, how much is an appraisal?
$400.
Okay, talk me out of spending that $400.
I can't, Bob.
No.
That's what you should be doing.
Can I add, Bob?
Yeah.
So this is something that I clicked on accidentally, and I've done it on the last 3 listings. And the way I do it is I say, I'll pay for it at closing. That's all I say. I say, just do it. And rather than when they say, well, what do you think the house is worth? I say, well, I think it's worth this, you think it's worth that, but it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, the appraiser's gonna come in and tell us what it's worth. That's it. So why don't we just find out now?
Yep.
And then if you really want to be aggressive about selling the house, just price it at $500 below the appraised value, we put right in the first thing in the public market, price below appraised value.
Yep.
I've done it on 3 listings, and they sell. I mean, I did an open house and I had 4 offers in 48 hours on the last listing that I did it on. It's a little house, 160,000 in Clearwater, and it was in horrible shape. Like the bathroom was mid-remodel,
Right.
and the laundry room wasn't finished. I was like, I don't know how to price this thing. So I said, would you do that? And she said, yeah.
Why wouldn't they, right? And you're gonna reimburse them the $400 at closing.
Yeah, in her case, it was
Front side.
$350, but yeah,
So
a bigger
right.
house would be more.
Yep.
That's, yeah, someone's gotta talk me out of that.
Well, so I was talking myself out of it when I was listening to John talk, because the downside is, now this was my question for you, I was gonna ask you after the class, but I'll ask you before. Now, my little listing on Virginia Avenue in Clearwater, I have an appraisal that's existing, done by a regular appraisal.
Right.
So, NSA has seen it, everybody
Nope.
knows about it.
Nope, 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 nope,
Okay.
nope, nope, nope.
That was my question.
Only lender-ordered appraisals
Okay.
go to UCDP.
Okay, that was my-
Private appraisals do not get submitted to the government.
What is my ethical obligation, though, knowing that the house appraised at once, well, it doesn't matter, because I posted it to the MLS anyway, so everyone could see it. So it's already been disclosed.
Mm-hmm.
The seller, the knowledge that even if the buyer's appraisal comes in different, at least they had it appraised.
Totally agree.
So-
But also the buyer, but the other thing is, now I have the appraisal in hand. When the appraiser goes to the MLS to see my listing, he's gonna see the MLS attachment. He's gonna see the appraisal right there, right there, so his life should be easier. True or no?
No, the appraisal doesn't show up in MLS.
Mine does.
Oh, yours. Gotcha.
It's
Okay.
taxed.
So, just a little caveat, right? Just a little caveat.
Yeah.
Little caveat. If I do pre-list appraisals, we do pre-list appraisals, we do them just like we're doing them for Wells Fargo.
Right.
Just like I'm doing them for Flagstar. Most appraisers don't do that.
Correct.
Most appraisers work for the seller. They know the seller is paying them, so they want to make the seller happy.
Right.
So when they go do the inspection and Mrs. Jones is in the back, like, that is the best kitchen cabinets in the country, that is the best thing. I have cleaned this house 400. The appraiser knows if the number doesn't come back on that piece of paper where Miss Jones wants it, that check is getting canceled.
Yeah.
So,
Really?
oh, heck yeah. Do you know how many times? I am to the point, Bob, where if you order an appraisal that's more than $400, you guys are residential, I'll trust you. The commercial side, 100% pay in advance.
Absolutely.
Because they see the number and then they run. And I got to sue them for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like, that's not the value I wanted, I'm not paying.
But
Like, you don't get to buy your value. It is what it is. It is what it.
About the pre-appraisal.
Well, I'm talking about the commercial side is 100% pay in advance. And
No,
the,
but I'm saying you're talking about when people order pre-appraisal.
yeah, you got to do it. That's fine, but make sure the appraiser is doing it to a lending standard.
Right.
Not just what
the
they,
seller wants to hear.
you got it. And they go cherry pick, and because they know Fannie Mae isn't reading it, so they go cherry pick comps and make the seller happy, and now you defeated the purpose of absolutely 100%. Yeah, because your deal's going to him, and if I lied, we're in big trouble, right? Like,
So my question, John, the bottom line of the question is, am I paying myself into a corner? Because now I've got an appraisal at 160 on this house, and I've got an FHA buyer that comes in and says, hey, you know, I've been talking to Brian, and he says I can roll my closing costs into my appraisal. Am I paying myself into a corner because now I've got an appraisal?
no, that appraisal doesn't go anywhere. It's private.
Okay.
It's private. Yeah, so the seller is, so like when I was talking before about the intended user of a mortgage appraisal, the the mortgage company originates that order, so they own the appraisal. In this circumstance, the seller is the intended user because they originated it, or you on their behalf.
Right.
When you say it's private, would it be harming the seller to post it then on the MLS?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
it's
Or would you just give it to the
No, I'll do
buyer
it.
straight
Yeah.
and not provide it so that
Right.
another appraiser can see it?
To be honest with you, I wouldn't show it at all.
Well,
I would say it's under appraised value, I'd keep it in my hip pocket, and I'd let mama come fall in love with the house and offer me 165.
in my case, this is the only time I posted. The reason I did it was because the house had so many problems.
Right.
And I wanted people, I didn't want.
Well, that's a situation, yeah.
Because all the marketing photos are beautiful, but when you walk in the bathroom, there's exposed 2x4s and
Yeah.
drywall that's not taped.
Right.
So that's the reason I did it.
Kind of a unique situation there, so yeah, I'm with you.
Right, but I think in general, hip pocket, in the event that you'll have a defensible position.
Exactly.
Somebody, you know, somebody tried to do it.
Yep. Jeff, something, man?
Well, yeah, you have an advantage because if you have a buyer that comes in and says, hey, I need my closing costs financed, and you know they can only go up to 160, and you know that's where the appraisal is, but they need to finance it on top of it because you have multiple offers. You need to have that conversation with your seller, say, look, we better make sure if it doesn't appraise that buyer has the assets to bring the funds to closing
Right.
for the closing costs. Otherwise, you have a dead deal
Right.
done
Yep.
3 weeks down the road. So
Yeah.
I think it's still helpful for you to have that value because then you know how to negotiate and advise your clients when the offers come in.
Yeah. Yeah, the seller concessions, like as we go into a normal market, like we're in a normal market right now, man, be very careful with those seller concessions. We can't, that's the first thing we
Oh,
whack.
you guys catch that?
It's the
Mandy
first thing
said
we
really
whack.
quickly, but she said, make sure that the buyer has the assets to make up the difference, right? I've got a clause, and Jim and I are working on getting more
Yep.
clauses, that we're all using form simplicity, just so you know, that you aren't really supposed to be writing a ton of clauses into your contract, right? But Jim and I are working on getting clauses, because in form simplicity, for instance, we can load clauses for you, like, hey, you guys can just plug and play, right? That we'll get attorney approved and so on and so forth. But I've got one that basically says, in essence, hey, look, it's more formal than this, but if we went to contract at 200, but we're paying 5,000 of closing costs, if the appraisal comes in anywhere between 195 and 200, right? Then there will be an equal reduction in the price and an equal reduction in the amount of seller contribution to the buyer's closing costs. That equals how far. So if it comes in at 198, guess what? We're still under contract. You aren't getting out. Price is 198, but now we're only paying $3,000 at closing costs. Because my seller's getting his 195.
Right.
And so a buyer agrees it on the front side that they'll come up with the extra $2,000. All right? Lenders, you don't like that?
No, just as a lender, like if you haven't gone through that class, that would be impeccable because most of your competition they don't
Understand.
Or maybe
Right.
they're inexperienced, they're
Right.
lazy,
Right.
they don't train. Like that's ways that you get people locked in. Unbelievable how you can capture business on the front end just by explaining that.
Yep.
You said right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I have
Yep.
that exact same conversation with all my buyers and sellers. What if this happens?
Right.
I say, it might not happen, but we need to have that conversation up front because I don't want to be 3 weeks down the road and say, oh, by the way, there's no money from the buyer, they needed that money, now the deal is dead, so it helps nobody.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh.
Coming from the other state, we had a clause similar to that, not about concessions, but just about making up the difference, so we had a low appraisal. Because the market's so hot, you often can get 20K over. If you're $10,000 apart from the appraisal, on the front end, the buyer has to agree, I'll make up that difference in $10,000.
They stay on the front side, or they'll lose their earnest money or whatever. They can't. Yeah. So that's something.
Can you make that clause?
We can think about it and see. I have to look at it. I probably have an attorney write it up, just so I think, because I'm not one. But I see. Well, some people would.
I'm a buyer,
Well, you got to think about the market she just came from.
Situation,
Right.
we bumped up the price.
Right.
Right. And say, hey, look, it's just an opinion of value, and just because the appraiser says it's not worth it, I still think it's worth it, and I'm right.
Say for 30 offers, if everyone's over asking.
Yeah.
I'm not relying on the
Right.
appraisal.
Or I want my offer to differentiate from the other 29.
Right.
But
That's-
the thing is, I used to have, maybe you're talking about my contract, because I used to put a clause in there like that. But then the lenders will be, that's not a good idea, because you're already alerting the lender that there is concern about the appraisal, so that's what I.
And what does an appraiser say when he sees the contract? Yeah. Worried about it.
Yeah.
Right, so how about this? Okay, again, let's turn off the mic, but we have a blank addendum
Yep.
that the appraiser gets to see the contract without that addendum. I mean, you prefer not to see that, right? That, hey, look, I think they're worried about price here.
Well, I mean, we know from the first phone call that you're worried about price. We know. We can hear it in your voice.
With the contract and there's a lender involved.
My wife hangs up the phone and goes, you better do this one.
That's a great statement, because that's so true.
It is true. We know. You call me 14 times, right? You want to check, when's that report going to be ready? When's that report going to be ready? Come on, John. Like, man, some people stressing. I don't really got a contingency. I got 6 phone calls. That or the one that's like completely like silent, right? And I'm in, we're in Placido Bayou, right? And I got a $1.3 million, like, oh, you got Snell pricing in Placido Bayou? Thank you. Oh, man, I'm sorry. So anyway. Yeah, too funny. Good stuff.
How do we do an appraisal? I got a little shock of, I went to R.D. Norton's open house for realtors.
Okay.
And I talked to the lender have somebody interested in that area.
Okay.
And so I went up there, and they were saying, well, you should use our lender because you get $4,500 incentives for the buyer. So I tried to talk with the fellow there, introduced, and talking about it, and then he said, yes, you do get it, but it gets put into, added on to the the price of the house.
Mm-hmm.
How is it an incentive when it gets added on, and then it gets appraisal? I'm better off with them, with the lender I'm using, with the whole thing.
Well, that's the other thing too, you guys. I mean, and Manny, to her point, any of you that aren't having a discussion about seller concessions, if you're telling your buyers you've got some magical power over sellers that's going to make them pay the closing costs, you don't. Right? You have the ability to roll that into the deal. If a seller's willing to take $195, you can do $195 with no closing costs, or you can do $200 with $5,000 in closing costs. It means the same thing to a seller. Here's the last thing: quit getting your panties all in a wad or your tidy whities in a wad when somebody comes back and says, "Hey, commissions are only going to be based on the $195." Why should the seller pay you 3% of the buyer's closing costs?
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Pack it away, man.
Yeah.
Just, you guys are all like, what? And you look like, I'm talking to the wrong group, I know it's none of you, right? But you look like you're bickering over $150, right?
Right.
And the seller's going, what the heck? I'm worried about the appraisal coming in over at 200, and you're bickering over $150. You know what I mean? What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Right?
Your check is $6,000. What is the $150?
Right.
The stupid appraiser got $400, by the way.
All that being said, man, I mean, I don't know.
Just too funny.
This is incredibly great information.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Good stuff, man. Thank you. And there's my contact info if you need me.
Contact info,
Yep.
how we get a hold of you, and if we wanted to do a pre-listing or a...
Yeah, so we have pre-list appraisals. I quoted 400. That's like our standard pre-list because we do it just like we're doing it for the bank. So we don't cut any corners or do any less of a job. We also have a desktop product that might be interesting to some of you guys. It's $150 for the desktop. There's no inspection. It's all MLS and data driven, which is what we do for like HELOC loans for most of the credit unions and local banks. So if the house is not super difficult, a desktop is good, but if you're just in those unique, difficult type properties, call us. That's what we're here for. Let us help you. Let us help you with the seller or your buyer. Let us help you with your buyer, right? And we'll do pencil searches. We have AVMs, like $30 AVM as well, but I wouldn't use the AVM. I would use your RPR versus anybody not taking the RPR class? Should absolutely take that RPR class. It's amazing. Take the RPR class and use this, and you spot on.
Is it really?
Oh, it's really good. So Frank
Imagine RPR.
Gregoire, I have a hard time saying his last name. He's like the celebrity appraiser from Pinellas County. He literally wrote that program. Like, that is his deal. And Frank is like world famous appraiser. Great guy, really good guy. That RPR is rock solid. Strongly recommend it. So guys, there's my contact. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Do you recommend a free program? So I use like Inside the Matrix and the CMA adjustments. I like that. Do you have a different site that's maybe a little more detailed that would kind of coincide with the information that we're trying to
So
adjust?
that's where RPR comes in, because you really, I would use RPR. You can move the sliders, you can make your own adjustments, and I know you can in the other one too, but just RPR is newer, and it's a little more tied to the algorithms that the GSEs are using. So I think when you use and you do those adjustments in there, I think it's even that much more accurate. I just think RPR is definitely the most accurate.
I was feeling, because of where I was going to end up being with this house that we're getting ready to put on the market, and I was thinking,
I'm sorry.
When you're doing the adjustments, I'm thinking, well, PR was really off.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no. So that's okay. If you send it to me, I'll look at it for you. Any other questions, anybody? Yes, ma'am.
Is there any sort of general, I've seen them online, but I don't know if I think they're probably tied to certain areas, but just general adjustment amount.
Like rule of thumb adjustments is what I call them. Right.
It depends on the pricing and location a home, 250, a pool and a cage is gonna be about 25, 30,000. I mean, you know, those types of things, fireplace, I don't know, 3 to
Half that.
6,000. You know,
What do you get?
it just depends on the area, and
So
how do we know that we're adjusting correctly?
it's match pair analysis. It's all matched pair analysis.
I mean, I know, obviously if there's more than like 4 or 5, we shouldn't.
I mean, I can give you some rules of thumb, but understand I didn't say this. And if any of my staff came here, I did not say this, right? So, you know, a bedroom is $5,000, right? Bathrooms nowadays, bathrooms are 10,000.
Oh, I was thinking 5.
Bathrooms are up to 10,000 now, right? Now, if you're in a, you know, 1971, 720 square foot house, you're probably going to get 5,000 for that bathroom. But in your normal 200 plus level home nowadays, you should get 10 grand for a full bath, 5 grand for a half. You'll kind of know the age of the appraiser by the adjustments, because older appraisers will do 5,000 for a full bath and 2,500 for a half bath. And I mean, I know you guys are talking, it's the absolute truth. It is what it is.
Well, and that's what I've been doing is when the appraisals come in from the buyer's side.
You write them.
I compare them to other appraisals
Right.
on the buyer's side, and I can see some of them are 5,000, 2,500 for half.
Right.
So I don't know which one to use.
Right, like, what are we supposed to do? So that's where you got to interview the appraiser, right? And from the voice, you can't ask them their date of birth on the phone, right? But Google them. Google them. You know, the average age of appraiser in America is 58, right? My daughter is a trainee appraiser. So this is what happened in appraisal. 10 years ago, 35% of them left. So we have 60% of the appraisal industry is over 50 years old, right? And then 40% of them are my daughter, right? And they're not even certified, so they're not even really in the numbers yet. But like when we're going to bifurcation and I'm up here talking about how bad it is, my little 25-year-old daughter, what the heck does she know about inspecting that house, right? Now she could type 110 words a minute, she can analyze spreadsheets, and she knows data, and she's unbelievable at technology and the internet, and she can run 4 screens, but she doesn't know the difference between a hip and a gable roof, right? And what we're doing, does she really need to know? No, she's a market data analyst. She's not a construction worker. The home inspector should be taking care of the collateral. We should be taking care of the value, right? So anyway, 15 pools, 8 grand for vinyl or fiberglass is typically what we give. 15 for your under 250 house. We might go 20 or 25 for a really nice house, but we try not to.
Certainly not the 125 with the lens replacement.
Exactly. Never, ever, ever. I think we gave her 35. She got $35,000 adjustment for that. Garage doors are typically, I'm sorry?
What was it, 35,000 adjustment?
Oh, the lady spent $134,000 on her back patio, and we gave her a $35,000 adjustment. I mean, they had a slide coming from the top of the roof that went all the way down. I don't know how they got it permitted. I don't know how they built it, to be honest with you.
Didn't tell their insurance company.
Yeah, dude, it's like Adventure Island in their backyard. Huh? I don't know. They had kitchen and the whole drill, man. It was crazy. Attached garages, typically $5,000 per door. Detached garages, $8,000 to $10,000 per door. And the difference is the cost of, building structure, obviously.
That's interesting that detached is worth more.
Yeah. You got to lay its own.
Functionality, you think it's not as nice.
Right. But you got to build the structure. You got to lay separate foundation. It's its own individual thing. So typically, it's going to be. Now, look, if it's a shanty wood frame, then it's not getting that, right? But if it's a true concrete block, real, outside, then we're going to do it. Metal's good too. We would go with the metal. Steel frame building, we'd go with that. That's okay. Per door. Yes, ma'am. Per door. Yep. It depends on how big. If a screen enclosure is over a pool, we're probably going to give it an extra $5 grand. If it's all by itself, probably 2,500. But it's going to depend. I mean, if you got a 60 by 28 lanai that's screened, probably get $5 grand for that. But if it's your typical, smaller, then you're probably going to see 2,500. Fireplaces, we're like $1,500 for a fireplace in Florida. You don't get much value for that here. And
Pond versus conservation.
that is truly market-based, right? And water, I will never throw a number out for water, right? It is 100% market driven, right?
$400 appraisal.
That's it. Because I can't, listen, some people, it's personal preference, right? Like I would never buy a house on a retention pond. I'm born and raised in Florida. I know what's in there. I know what's gonna happen to my skin if I try and leave the screen, right? But if I'm from Michigan and I come down, I take my little weekend trip through Riverview and I'm like, this is beautiful, and I buy me the 3,000 square footer, right? So anyway.
Find out about the no-see-ums later.
What about 10K lot premiums you pay as a
Oh God, I love those builders, man. We make them work, Manny. We make them work. That's what we do. We figure it out. But the next guy, good luck, right? So we always tell the lot premium people, you better stay here 7 to 10 years. You better stay here 7 to 10 years. I know you love it. You better stay here 7 to 10 years because they're going to have to finish building out the subdivision, and we need 2 years of resales probably before you're going to see that money. Like tough.
So no adjustment at all for that?
What? No, we're going to go find some others. We're going to go find others. For lot premium,
They have to, contort a little bit.
right, so that's, and what is the lot premium for? Is it because it's on a conservation? Is it because it's a cul-de-sac? So that has a lot to do with it too. And then however many others have sold similar to that, right? Yes, ma'am.
Going to lot also, so I'm on an acre where the back half of it, it's just pretty to look at kind of thing. And then in the community, there's also people on a full acre of lawn. When we had a guy come to our house to appraise it, he said it's usable land is how he really values it. So if I have 2 acres and only one's usable, it's the same as 1 acre of lawn. Is that about?
Yes, it's called, that's the rule of excess land. That's exactly what that's called. So if the extra land is not dividable and buildable, then it just has contributory value, not full market value, right? So you bought, you see the house, and like the guy in my neighborhood in Berry Street, he had his, and then he had the lot next door, but Clearwater changed like the building requirements many, many, many years ago, and that lot was too skinny to build a house on. So, he got basically like a $10,000 adjustment for his excess land, that he thought had a market value of like $70,000 or $80,000. But it's not subdividable, you can't individually parcel it, so you don't get the value. Yes, sir.
So what you're saying to Manny's lot premium question is, in a new community like Starkey Ranch or Bexley or something like that, the appraisers are going to do what they can do to work with the builder. But if I'm working with a relo client from Toledo, and he says, we're out of here in 2 years because I'm going to Kansas next, and I love this house, and the builder wants a $20,000 lot premium, I'll tell him, you can buy the house if you want to pay the $20,000, but you're gonna have a hard time getting it back. So just know that going in.
That's absolutely
I know
true.
The appraiser said it's there, but I'm just telling you, if you want it, you might not get it back. So my recommendation is don't pay for it because you'll have a hard time getting it back.
Especially in 2 years. Manny and I were just talking about this yesterday. You're in a new home subdivision.
Right.
When my mom built that house in Northdale, there wasn't no way in heck she was buying an existing house that was a year old. She got to pick her own cabinets, her own floors. She got to do the floor plan we wanted. She got to pick the elevation she wanted. That was the reason she was buying a new home, right? So when that's gone and now you're reselling 2 years from now and they're still breaking ground down the street on new houses, that's a problem, man. That's a problem. That's a problem. Yes, sir. Home solar. It's becoming more and more popular. It's very hard for us to justify right now because there's so little market data, right? And everything is driven on market data. So the more that it becomes prevalent, the more we're going to be able to. At this point, we're kind of giving you 50% of what you paid for if it's owned, because we really don't have,
Until you can fill up those
right,
columns.
until we fill the columns up. So we did a subdivision up off of like 54 that's all green, right? But I call it a subdivision, it's 2 streets, right? It's like 40 houses. So we did all of those in there, but I can't compare that to St. Pete, solar, right? It's not the same, so.
So the best thing on that is have the receipt for it, because I did have an appraisal, I was on the buyer side on it.
Right.
And we were trying to get an estimate on it, and the appraiser was like, I'll give you $1,000.
Oh, Jesus. Ouch. Nice guy. Wow. What'd they pay, 20 grand for the solar panels?
30.
Yeah. Ouch. We're probably gonna give you 10, if they paid that much, we're probably gonna give you 10, but we're not, oh my gosh, how embarrassing, $1,000, ouch. I'd be pissed off, I'd be mad. Any other questions? Thank you guys so very much for your attention, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Great information. And telling you guys, I would